Hello and what's up everybody, it's wylwrk here and welcome to the first installment of this channel's Ultima Online character build series. I plan to deliver several builds that are based on the popular MMO Ultima Online, however these characters that will be shown are more specifically tuned and played on the free-to-play server UO Renaissance. UO Renaissance is an Ultima Online free shard based on the Renaissance era of UO. This was a time period where the sweet spot was considered to be around 1998 to 2001. I'll leave it to you to discover why Ultima Online is still touted as the one online game that started it all by including player-based economy, the crafting system of all crafting systems, player versus player combat. Well, the possibilities seem limitless, and the outcome, of course, is all up to you. So if you're looking to play the grandfather of all MMOs, then head on over to uorenaissance.com and give it a try. Check out the video description below for more details. That said, let's get this thing started because if you join UO today, I'm about to show you a build that makes for an excellent first character. I'm also going to show you something that once seen can never be unseen. I'm of course talking about the Streak. This character is a melee fighter combined with the magical abilities of the musical bard and a dash of role-playing flair that makes it an effective and fun character to play. Using the Peacemaking skill, this warrior bard hypnotizes his targets and freely strikes them down with melee. To be honest, the role-playing aspect that I've added to this classic build shouldn't be taken too seriously. It's admittedly a bit silly, on purpose. The overall objective is to just have some fun with it. This build has been around for quite some time and has become an absolute classic, still used by many players today. Also, it's one of, if not the, top recommended for new players. Training up of this character requires very little if any monetary investment, yet it's guaranteed to make a high return and it's very simple to use. Of course, it's also a ton of fun to play. Before I go any further, I do want to point out that I've put a timeline and links in the description for those of you here seeking specific information. Now, let's talk about this Peacemaking dexxer that stuns his opponents with the hypnotic girth of his massive hammer. As already mentioned, the Streak is a dexxer. A dexxer, of course, is a character that focuses on melee more than anything else. As a player versus monster character, the Streak will work offensively with melee and defensively with both healing via bandages and more or less stun locking their opponent with Peacemaking. When it comes to stats, the build has some flexibility that will tie into some of the skill choice alternatives that I'll speak of later in the video. For now though, a solid example is 100 strength, 100 dexterity, and 25 intelligence. This gives our character the most damage per second with melee, but at a sacrifice to their magery potential. Let's also not forget that on UO Renaissance there's a nasty little offensive magery spell called Mind Blast. Due to those max stats, Mind Blast will hit us like a truck to the face every time. However, Devil's Advocate will chime in and remind us that we are the Streak, and with our hypnotic peacemaking powers we shouldn't be tanking damage. In fact, the Streak is so confident in their skills they wear no armor at all. For starting towns, I believe personal preference takes precedence. However, if you're new to the server I play on, you will be in something called Young status. This is a temporary time period where your character is considered new and has additional protective qualities about it designed to be more forgiving of mistakes while you run around and basically learn the game. Among the many benefits, there is one restriction that has you living on the island of Oslo. Oklololo? Verity Island. There you'll find everything a character needs to develop their skills. I myself hung out in two major cities, U and Jalom. For character lore reasons, I started in U, but I traveled by foot and sea, ending up in Jalom as a main city for this character due to it being known as a warrior city. Also, there's a nearby graveyard in close proximity to the bank, Moongate, and of course the infamous Jalom Bull Pit. Before I go any further, I think it's time to talk about this character's backstory. All good characters have a backstory, and the Streak is no exception.
Born in Empath Abbey, the Streak was destined for a boring life as a monk, making wine for Britannians to enjoy. His father was a monk, his father's father was a monk, and so of course the Streak was expected to fall in line. He fell alright, right into the wine trough where he became infatuated with wine and the powers he believed it bestowed on him. This of course got him into a lot of trouble. Drunk with power, the Streak grew up as an incorrigible young man that constantly rebelled against the monastery. In fact, one night he became so furiously drunk he vandalized the city overnight and woke up in the U County Jail. The monks spoke at the trial on his behalf, explaining to the judges that their student should be released back to them for a suitable punishment. They said he was destined to be a monk, and a monk he shall be. He rebelled against it, like it or not, He was going to become a respectable monk and live the rest of his days making wine for others to enjoy, but take not one sip for himself. The judge quickly agreed and released him back to the monks, and they began their rehabilitation immediately by surrounding him in the courtyard. "Put on the robe," they'd cry. "You've got demons in you and we're going to get them out. You are going to become a holy monk of Empath Abbey, like it or not." "No, I won't do it. I don't belong here. This isn't the life for me," he yelled out in defiance. In that moment, that robe, and in fact most clothing, represented everything the streak rebelled against. And he'll be damned if a boring life cooped up in a monastery is going to be his fate. So he broke free of the mob, snatched up 2 bottles of wine, and ran off like the wind without any clothes. The monks yelled out, "Get back here!" The streak replied in a fit of defiant anarchy, "Boogity boogity," as he scurried off, leaving the monks to stand there with a full moon's view. Enjoying his independence, he joined up with a traveling gypsy caravan, and this is where he began his training. He quickly mastered musicianship. He learned the mystical art of bardic peacemaking. And well, to put it frankly, he swung a huge hammer, all without the restriction of stuffy clothing. His uniform was to be simple, he said to himself. A colorful hat, a good pair of running shoes, and the only restriction I will allow is a single piece of carefully positioned cloth to hold back the fury of my newfound power. And powerful he was, for anyone who dared to step in his way would have to face the thrust of his might and be dumbfounded by the sheer force of his full power and potential, for he is the streak.
Of all the redeeming qualities of this build, the one I'd like to highlight is the low to no expense in training it up to its full potential. In fact, the training for this character, when done right, can even be considered a profit, especially when the training is done while out fighting monsters. Conversely, if you wish, this template can also be trained worry-free and for the most part unattended via macros. Either way, the Peacemaking dexxer is an excellent first character and will suit most players new to an Ultima Online server based on the Renaissance period of the game. Anatomy, healing, musicianship, peacemaking, tactics are going to be the stock skills of this build, and I'd consider them mandatory. You'll be able to heal any damage you take with bandages and also cure poison. Combined with a handful of alchemy potions, these 2 skills have all the healing needs this build requires for PvM. Musicianship and peacemaking go hand in hand, and tactics is there to boost your character's combat ability. Overall, those 5 skills give your character the ability to freeze targets in place to a point where they won't even fight back, and combined with strength potions gives your character a damage boost of around 104% of your base total damage. Pick up a weapon with maximum tactics bonus, and this gives you another 6% on top of that. In regards to healing, the amount of damage that can be healed depends on the combination of healing and anatomy skills. If the healing action is interrupted, the amount of damage healed will be reduced for each interruption during the healing timer. For example, a 30 to 60 hit point heal roll becomes 15 to 25 with a few interruptions. While I will not recommend sacrificing points in melee skills or their damage modifiers, an argument can be made for taking a few points out of healing. In my opinion though, it had better be for a damn good reason. Barring that, there still are a few alternatives, first being the melee weapon skill you choose. Honestly speaking, either fencing, maces, or swordsmanship, including axes, will do just fine, but an argument can be made for which one's better than the other. The peacemaking effects have a chance to break with every damaging effect placed on your target, be it melee, poison, or magery. Taking this into account, I myself chose maces, specifically for the Warhammer. It's got a slow swing speed. Also, macing comes with a special ability called Crushing Blow, which has a 25% chance to add 50% more damage to any given successful melee strike. Yes, please. Also, the Warhammer fits well into the overall theme for my character for reasons. At 600 skill points, this character is complete and viable, leaving us 100 skill points left. I recommend magery for fast travel via recall. There's quite a bit of flexibility here via a combination of magery and meditation, or if you prefer, lowering your strength in favor of intelligence to have 100 magery. For example, were you to set your intelligence to 41 or so, bear with me, and cast the bless spell on yourself, even without meditation, your intelligence will raise to the minimum requirement of 50 before wearing off. Why would I do this? Well, you could run around with an 8th level summon demon, for example. That's why. At a real skill of 50.1 magery, you'll be able to recall with a recall scroll without any trouble. Raise that to 70.1 and you'll recall without the need of a scroll and rely on reagents. You'll also be able to mark your own runes with mark scrolls. This leaves you with a whopping 29.9 points to put elsewhere. For example, in this case, I'd recommend meditation. That said, you're no mage. Casting any spell will need to be carefully planned as you don't have much mana to play around with. The easiest and most effective beginner route, though, is going to be 50.1 magery and using scrolls for recall. And it's also my recommendation. You can start with 50 magery and use those reagents you start with to gain that ever difficult 0.1. In regards to peacemaking as a skill, it would be very easy to dive into the numbers and get lost in the minutia. That said, the important thing relevant to our character is something called barding difficulty. Every mob in the game has it, and this number signifies the odds that our character will successfully land a peacemake attempt as well as the duration of the effect. The point being, for our character, it would be better to work with quantity instead of quality. That is why mobs like evil mage lords are much better for us to hunt than, say, dragons or balrons. Other mobs that are good for us to hunt are giant toads, lizardmen, and ratmen. Those mobs drop spined leather hides when carved. Presently, spined leather is going for around 25 to 30 gold each. So sure, the average gold drop from one ratman is 30 to 50 gold. That's a fair sum considering they go down in 2 to 3 swings. However, they also drop 8 hides each. So, at a minimum, each ratman will be valued at around 200 gold. That's a minimum. Now, look at a ratman mage. Take into account the relation of this mob's average hit points and decent odds at special loot like level 3 maps. Then factor in the guaranteed 25 gold per spined leather hide, you'll get a minimum 430 gold in the time it takes your character to land 3 or 4 good swings in melee. Need cloth and reagents? Hunt my personal favorite, evil mages. They remind me of monks. They're evil monks. They must be destroyed. Anyway, these guys have very few hit points but drop a lot of scavengeable material. Reagents, scrolls, treasure maps, force and power weapons, decent gold too. Speaking of cloth, they have a chance to drop rare colors. These sell to players for, would you believe, up to 200k a robe? To summarize, the Streak is one of my favorite and most played characters. I love that I can carry around 20 bandages, a warhammer, a recall scroll, and a rune back home in my bag while making about 80k an hour and having a ton of fun doing it. Until next time, good luck out there and have fun. Boogity boogity.